welcome everybody. It's great to have you here. Welcome to our MBN Speaker Series event. We're excited to have the opportunity for you to join us today. We do about 8 or 9 of these, as most of you know. Speaker Series events have been going since 2004. And I think our first speaker was Joe Dumars from the Pistons when he was the general manager. He had already retired. But we've had a lot of notables, and we've got another notable today to keep with that. The QR codes on your tents there, on your tables, they can be used to get a digital version of today's program. To take a survey, the button at the bottom of the digital program takes you to the event survey. Please fill that out. That's how we get better. Today's digital program has a link to the PDF of today's presentation and access to the SensCy score. So, which of course Rick is going to share details on later. So these events don't happen without our sponsors, as you all know, and I always say every month because it's so important. We have this underwriting, Deep Transportation, Shaheen Chevrolet Cadillac, Fly Lansing, Snyder, and TriStar Bank are this month's sponsors. So if I could get a round of applause for those folks. Now we're going to do one of those things we really value, and that's kind of a community roundtable. And you may not be on the list, but if I think of something you should be sharing, I may point at you, Jeff. So anyway, along those lines, Fly Lansing is the first one we'd like to talk about, but they're not here, but we do have an announcement, and that is that Catherine Jappinga had a baby boy, right? Louis Alexander. So she's kind of predisposed. Okay? I hope you all forgive her. So, Shaheen Chevrolet and Cadillac. Where are you at, Jason?
Right here. Thank you, Chris. Rick, thanks for being here today. Excited to hear what you got to say. And I am a fan from the past also. But I'll tell you a couple things that are happening at our dealerships. And starting April 1st, we do have buy 3 tires, get 1 for $1, and it really, really is a good deal because we normally have the best tire prices already in town, but then you get your 3rd one or 4th one for $1. So keep it. That'll run for 2 months. Also, gas prices are spiking. All of a sudden, this past week has been a rush on EV vehicles, which is kind of crazy. Everybody now wants an EV. A few months ago, they're like, yeah, they're out the window. But now it's been a little challenging. The leases still are pretty decent on EV vehicles. We've got a few left. We can get them, or you can order them. We've got the new Chevy Bolt coming also. So exciting things at our dealership. We are busy, but if you need a vehicle, please reach out to me. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the product you bring to the area and also the service all around the state. You guys still do a phenomenal job of getting parts to a lot of dealerships. So that's a big deal also. Dean Transportation, Courtney Bowman. Oh, I waited till you took a bite.
Leave it to you, Chris. I'm Courtney from Dean Transportation. Proud to be here today with members of our IT team so we can learn more about cybersecurity, or I should say I can learn more about cybersecurity and they can enhance what I think they know. So we are proud to be here today supporting Michigan Business Network. Looking forward to a busy spring as all of our school buses gear up for field trips, athletic competitions, in addition to getting kids to school every day. And our Trailways team is proud to be transporting teams from across the country that are in the region for NCAA and NAIA national championship tournaments. So that's been a very exciting time for our team. And definitely keep in mind any transportation needs that you have coming up for the spring and summer if you're interested in black car and motor coach services. And on your tables today as well is information on the Ingham ISD facilities bond that we shared more about last time. So take a look at that. If you have questions or information, there's the QR code, and you are welcome to visit any community forums or tours coming up, and just make sure that you're fully informed as you go into the May 5th election. So thank you.
There you go. And my apologies to anybody that I called raising funds for this, but when you have a good cause, you do that sort of thing. I did it for Rick. as a matter of fact. Okay, Snyder, Mark McDaniel.
Well, good afternoon. Snyder is a community development finance institution headquartered here in Lansing. We are serving 12 states in the Mid-Atlantic, Midwest, and we're about ready to expand out to the Mountain Plains, so we get to go to Yellowstone country and play cowboy. Basically, we provide financing, investment dollars for affordable housing, lending for affordable housing, and a whole host of other financial products to do very impactful community development. I'm going to use the rest of my time not about Snyder, but I want to express some gratefulness to our keynote person today. And in the last year of your term, Governor, Judge Harry Hoffman and I wrote a white paper that we presented to you in regards to an idea how treatment courts and the housing industry could do something about the opiate epidemic. You read that paper, you liked it, and you put together a task force, the State Housing Development Authority and the Michigan Health Department, Snyder, champion who lost his son, Mike Hurst, to opiate addiction, a couple of developers, and we sat down and broke down a lot of the barriers that are in MISTA and the health department to be able to come up with a model. And that model now is in Jackson. The first one's been there 3 years, Andy's Place. They just did the second phase of Andy's Place, which still kind of like, it's uncomfortable to say it, but it's named McDaniel Apartments. And that one's very unique because it's for pregnant women who have addictions. First resident there, the day we had the grand opening, she gave birth to twins and is doing really well. But we also have going to complete one in Southfield, 80 units there. We've got 50 units in Kalamazoo going to break ground. Got another one in Bay City and another one in Traverse City. That's all because of what you read that paper and you liked it and you did something about it. And I think I will try again. Thank you. But
What'd she say, time to sit down?
no. Say go on longer. Go on longer. Make Chris uncomfortable. No, but the point of this is by doing that, hundreds of people's lives have been saved, and that was the whole point of why we wrote the paper. So thank you.
Yeah, good. I like that. So this is how effective the speaker series is. Former presenters come back, and so Ben Bonkin, if you
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, Chris was talking about all the notable speakers that he's had over the years between Joe Dumars and Governor. Thanks for being here today. Last month, all the notable speakers were busy, so instead they had me talking.
I meant to mention.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. No, at the last Michigan Business Network luncheon, I was able to present on the importance of succession and exit planning for business owners. So that presentation focused on, for owners of businesses, understanding the value of your business, first of all. How do we value it? What drives it? Understanding the importance of personal financial planning for yourself, what you may need out of your business. We talked about exit options you might have available to you. Some may be options, some might not. And then who are the professionals that you might need, as part of your journey. So, you may need an attorney like, Mark Persick from Fahey Schultz. You might need a financial, professional financial planner like TriStar or like a Bryce or something like that. So just understanding the people that you need at your table. It was an educational seminar and appreciated the time very much. So if you're interested in learning more, I think there is a link to it on the Michigan Business Network website to go check that out. So thanks, Chris.
Excellent. Thank you, Ben. And then finally, sitting way back in the corner at the discipline table is the Executive Director of AARP Michigan, Paula Cunningham.
I am in the timeout table, Chris. Hello, everyone. Governor, it's great to see you again. Thank you for coming back and sharing with us. I just want to share one thing. There's always something going on at AARP. We represent 1.3 million members throughout the state, both 50 and older and their families. And probably a lot of you in this room have cryptocurrency, and it's fine, it's not an issue, buy it, on your phone. What's happening across our state is that they're setting up ATM machines where you can purchase cryptocurrency from ATM machines. And 93% of them are fraudulent. Michigan State Police contacted us, a 47-year-old teacher in Traverse City, set at an ATM crypto machine at a gas station. The gentleman even bought her a chair, putting in $125,000, and that was her life savings. She was buying crypto and never got her money back. It's gone. We are learning that this is prevalent. There's some states who have banned ATM crypto machines, not crypto, Bitcoin, that's fine. But you can do that on your phone. You can do it on your computer, laptop. Very few people ever go to an ATM machine to transfer cash into crypto. And the lobbying to keep those machines is strong because they're making money. But 93% in Michigan, according to Michigan State Police, are fraudulent. And so we have some legislation that's out there to try to ban these machines, ATM machines, for crypto. So if you know, or talk to a legislator, or talk to the Governor Snyder's there to be done, but in this environment right now, we have to advocate for everything. So we're really advocating on behalf. Oh, and the other part is 73% of those activities are from older adults.
Yeah.
Who are putting their money into those machines. So that's the thing that we're working on now. You know about all our other issues, but please help us any way you can, lift your voice, and let's just ban the ATM. We don't need ATM crypto machines in Michigan. So Indiana just banned all theirs too, by the way. Thank you. Thanks,
Oh,
Chris.
thank you. Thanks for the remarks. Does anybody have anything else to share with the group here that we should be aware of? Or that you could talk about in public? Yeah. Oh, good.
Hello.
Lori
I'm
Richard.
Lori Richard from Edge. Nice to see you all today. And I thought Mark, you had a great story to tell, but what I would say, first of all, welcome back, Governor, is in less than 2 months, Children Trust Michigan is holding their signature auction. It's the night of all nights. Most importantly, it is the sole and biggest fundraiser to prevent child abuse in our state. So come on out. You can find more information on Children Trust Michigan. And hope to see you all on May 19th. And it's coming back to downtown at the DoubleTree. Thank you.
You know what? I apologize. I should have introduced you as the president of AARP Michigan. So multiple hats there while she's growing her company like crazy. Okay, so now since we got lunch early, we'll get right into the program. Rick Snyder, Executive Director and co-founder of SensCy. It was founded in 2022 when he finally had a little bit of time to do something. And it's to provide affordable, easy to understand, sensible solutions tailored for small and medium-sized companies to better protect themselves from cyber attacks. As you know, he served 2 terms as governor, 2011 and 2018. He oversaw Detroit's restructuring and comeback and has been active in venture capital firms. Also one of the originators of Spark, actually. And just done some incredible stuff, and through MADC as well. So he's got a plethora of information here, and I said, do you want me to tell everybody no political questions? But he is totally unafraid of any questions, so we'll have a Q&A afterwards. All right, please welcome Rick Snyder.
Well, thanks, Chris. It's actually great to be back. I think I've spoken to this group before quite a few years ago, so I'm a retread. But it's a great opportunity to be with you, and thank you for the kind comments about opium housing and the issues there. I went to Andy's place just a couple of years ago to go see the province, and it's incredible. And I appreciate the comments looking out for our seniors. I'm one of those folks now, I'm a member of them. But much of the cyber crimes and abuse going on is actually targeted at our seniors. So this is a very topical matter for anyone of any age, but particularly if you're an older Michigander, you really do need to think about cybersecurity. What I'm going to try to do today is not scare the living daylights out of you. I am going to put it in perspective that there are some serious issues here. To give you a little background, people often wonder, how did I end up doing this? Why? When I was done being governor, what do you do with an old governor? Have you ever thought about that question? So I looked at the problems in the world, what were major challenges, and if you do that analysis, and being a proud nerd I did, that usually in the top 3 greatest threats to the future of society, cybersecurity will show up. And so I said, here's an area where I think I can actually give back and help people in the future. The part that goes with that, though, is there's a very large, successful cybersecurity industry out there. Some huge companies, Palo Alto Networks, CrowdStrike. You'll hear some of these names out in the general public. They're public companies, but they service enterprises. They serve large organizations. And when you get to small and medium-sized organizations, there's very few people out there that are supporting them, making them safer. And so I said, let's go help the unhelped and focus in on how we can help small and medium-sized organizations. And I had 2 great colleagues from the state join me. One was David McBean, our Chief Information Officer. Many of you may have run across David. And then Dave Kelly, who was actually at the Michigan State Police. He stood up and ran the cyber command. So those are the real cyber people. I'm a general nerd though, so I love all this stuff, anything technology. The first thing is there's a lot of misconceptions about cyber, particularly if you're small and medium sized. If you're a small and medium sized business, one of the first things that deter you from doing something is it's hard to understand. Too often it's a series of acronyms. So the joke in our company is I'm actually the anti-acronym police. So since we serve a small and medium size, we speak in whole terms, plain language, understandable terms. And it is something that's perfect for a nerd. If you go to the next point though, and this is something that I do understand, it's not a top priority in your organization. Cybersecurity, the only time it will ever be a top priority is the day you get hacked. And that's going to consume your life. Short of that, you're going to be concerned about how do I grow my business, how do I take care of my employees. Cyber is not going to be the #1 issue. The main thing I tell people though is it needs to be an issue. It needs to be a priority. Just because it's not your top priority, do not ignore it. That's the greatest threat you have, is ignoring the topic totally. And then there's a belief you're a small fish in a big pond, so they're never going to find me. I'm going to be okay. I could actually ask people here, every single one of you has had cyber threats in the last 24 to 48 hours, where people have been sending an email that if you clicked on it, you'd be in big trouble. So you can be the smallest fish in this ocean, there's no escape. They will find you, and they have found you. The reality is they actually like small fish, small and medium-sized organizations to go after instead of big ones. A couple reasons why. One is if you think about it, they would rather attack 500 smaller organizations than one large one, because the large one will get attention from law enforcement, from the press, from everything else. It'll draw attention. Where if they get a whole bunch of small ones and so much money from all those folk, it sort of goes underneath the radar. And they just keep doing it. So they actually like small fish for that reason. The second one is quite often the greatest way they're attacking big companies now is coming up through the smaller organizations. They're coming up through the supply chain. Well, that was quick. I have another point or so, but let's move on. I didn't know if this was my... The consequences of an attack are devastating. And the threshold question, and I mentioned that a little bit already, is you have a choice. Do you want to be ignorant or do you want to take action? And you really do want to take action. So next slide, please. This is what you don't want to see. This is actually a real illustration of a ransomware attack slide. Someone came into work in the morning and this was up on their computer. And it shows how sophisticated the bad guys are now. This is actually a few years old. But to give you an idea of how sophisticated, it actually shows how you can get your stuff back. It goes through terms and conditions of the agreement to get your information back if you pay them. It shows payment method, and that's where crypto comes in, because they'll lock cryptocurrency, because the lack of traceability or the challenge to trace it. The wild part is they even have payment terms. You get a discount if you pay sooner. These are not casual bad guys. These are professional bad guys, and they're highly sophisticated. They tend to be in countries where we can't get them, but literally, they have HR departments. They advertise for hackers. They talk about in their ads, here's your employee benefit package if you come be a hacker with us. It's staggering how sophisticated they are and how bad they are. Next slide, please. Here's just a few metrics, and I'm going to go through this quickly because, again, I don't expect you to memorize, but just give you a flavor. More than half of small businesses don't expect to be targeted. We already talked about that. But about half also don't know what to do. And about half of all attacks are aimed at small and medium-sized businesses. What are the consequences if you have a successful hack? Quite often for a small business, it'll cost somewhere between $120,000 and over $1 million. That's the financial piece. That's not the distraction piece to your business. If you are taken down in a ransomware attack and don't have like an incident response plan or a backup plan, and I'll show you the data on what % don't have that, your average downtime is 22 days. Can you imagine if your business isn't operating for 22 days? If you have the right plan, you can be down less than 48 hours. And the bottom line is, this is only going to get worse. This situation is not going to improve. This just means you have to be even more vigilant than what you've even been in the past. Next slide. Now, cybersecurity. How many ever thought you'd be part of an audience participation process on cybersecurity? Now, some of you are IT people, and this will be easy for you. But even if you're not an IT person, I want you to go along with this. And you may not know the answer what you're doing in your company. If you're a senior person, if you're one of the people running your organization, you should be familiar with every one of these terms that I'm going to be walking through. And the reason I'm going to do this is I want you to get involved so you can get a flavor for this. And I have 10 questions. Why did I pick 10 questions? That's why. So as we go through each question, I want you can hide it underneath the table. You don't have to have it so anyone can see how many fingers you're actually using. But I want you to keep track and score of how many of these you actually do the yes answer on what you should be doing. Okay, you up for that? Because again, you can hide your hands. I don't want to embarrass anyone here because I know some of the scores probably won't be very good. So let's get going. Are your employees trained on cybersecurity policies? First question. So you can put your finger up or not. Do you have an inventory of your hardware and software? Second question. Third question. Do you have a complex password policy? Okay, everyone answered those 3 questions? I'm going to show you the results now, and the results I'm going to show you are SensCy does an annual survey that represents what's going on collectively across the country. We do SensCy scores, and we do this for free, so we collect a lot of data from companies. And so the answers I'm going to show you shows you what % of small and medium-sized organizations in the US actually do these things. And eventually you'll be able to compare yourself against them. Okay? That sound kind of cool? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, here's the answers. Only 23% of organizations are trained on policies. If you don't know what the policies are, your team doesn't know what they should be doing. Do you have an inventory of hardware and software? Just less than half. Why is that a big deal? Because that sounds really boring. People say, well, you only do that because you're an accountant. No, why do you have an inventory of hardware and software? It's actually that sub-point there. If you have an inventory of hardware and software, you know what you need to keep up to date, what you need to patch, what you need to be aware of, what's going on. If you don't have that inventory, you don't know if there's massive problems or holes or difficulties being found in software or hardware. And if you want to do things right, you're going to do patching within 48 hours. If you have that hardware or software and a critical update comes out, you need to do something quickly. And if you look at it, only 49% have the inventory. Critical patching only happens in 33% of the total cases. Now you go, well, what happens if I wait longer? In the old days, you probably could wait longer. But with AI now, what the bad guys are doing is they're going through and they're figuring out and looking for anyone that has that kind of software or hardware that has the critical vulnerability. And they'll probably be able to find it within 48 hours. And then they're going to come after you. And if that hole's still there, they're going to come through that hole and get you. And then complex password policies, 70%. So that's actually pretty good. The interesting part is only 18% use a password keeper, which we sort of recommend because those complex passwords can be hard to keep straight. So next slide, please. You with me now? We got through the first three. You good for some more?
I'm a little squeamish.
Do you conduct employee cybersecurity awareness training? Those are those quizzes you'll get every month or every couple months asking a few questions. Do you conduct employee phishing exercises? And what those are basically situations where you'll have good guys send you email to see if you click on it. So, for example, in SensCy, if someone's a client of ours, we do cybersecurity awareness training every other month with our clients and all their employees. In the off month, in that other month, we'll do phishing exercises, where we'll write email to see if people will click on it. One of my favorite ones, those are kind of fun to come up with, by the way, the phishing ones. One of the best ones we ever had was we sent around an email that actually wasn't intended for the person receiving it. Because, again, think about it, if you're supposed to be getting it, you're more aware, you're going to look at it closer. But if it looks like a mistaken email, you go, oh, I got this as a mistake. But what we did is, we said, it was like from the HR people, and it said, the executive compensation files attached below. So you knew you shouldn't be clicking on it, but you wanted to know. And then the third question is,
What was the click rate?
it was, I don't want to, do you conduct cybersecurity briefings for leadership? Again, these should happen at least annually, but on a regular basis. So the owners, the managers, the top people in the organization should have a briefing and a discussion about what's going on in cybersecurity. If those of you that are used to big companies or bigger companies, it started years ago. So it started first with, you had an audit committee and you had to have an expert that was a financial expert. Then it went to compensation and you had to have an expert that knew about compensation. The trend now for big companies is they are actually adding a cybersecurity person to their board. So there's someone briefing people about cybersecurity. I recently joined a board in this region, and I'm their technology member. They actually elect most of their board members. I was an appointed member because they wanted me to help have a technology committee because it's becoming such a big issue. Now, you voted now. Here we're going to show the stats now on how well people did. Next slide, please. Do you do regular cybersecurity awareness training? 49% do. Best practice in our view is only 12% do it every other month or more often. 12%. And this is something that I tell people. I've had people come to me and say, hey, we think it's a good idea, but we're not going to do it because we don't want to ask our employees to do anything else. We think they're busy enough. It's going to be more burden on them. And we know it's important, but it's not worth it. And my answer to them is because you're presented the wrong way. You're presented as a burden on them. I view it should be presented as a free employee benefit. And why do I say that? Everything they're going to learn in those lessons is going to make them safer at home. And for our clients, we actually encourage them to take what they learn in those lessons home and explain it to their family members. And the cool part is, we've actually had feedback from clients saying, someone came forward and said, you helped make us safer. Some employee came up and said, I would have clicked on this, or my wife would have, or my spouse, but they learned through this lesson not to do it. Employee phishing exercises. Only 23% do that every other month. And then do you conduct leadership briefings? 28%. These are poor scores, folks. But many of you probably haven't been adding to your finger count either. You're probably with these folk. And that's the scary point, is your greatest threat is not technology. 80 to 90% of hacks still involve a person. And if your people are not participating, if they're not trained, they're not aware, your management is not getting briefed, you're leaving yourself open to be attacked. You're actually inviting it. Next slide. Do you have multi-factor authentication for email access? Do you have endpoint protection? And that one I will explain a little bit. Do you have antivirus, you have firewalls, different things like that in your systems to protect your systems? And this one I like. This is a more technical term. Do you require a virtual private network if you're using your devices outside the office? And I'll talk a little bit more when we get to that. But that's the famous VPN. Okay, everyone got a chance to vote now? We're up to 9 questions. I'm not even going to ask how many people are using their second hand yet to keep score. Oh, good. I figured there's one table I was counting on. I knew they'd have a pretty good score. Next slide, please. Multi-factor authentication, 61%. That's actually pretty good. You should have multi-factor on more than just your email. You should have it on any application that allows it. And what is multi-factor? That's that famous thing about saying they're going to send you a text before they let you use the system. Turn that on every time you can. Even better than getting the text is they're now calling them passkeys, where there are more sophisticated verification methods. If you can at least get multi-factor with the text, is good. If you can do the passkey, that's even better. But turn that on every single time. Endpoint protection, this one amazed me. It's just a little over half. I mean, not to even have this is pretty crazy. And the virtual private network, the one I like this, is quite often people are on Wi-Fi when you travel somewhere. And where would be the worst places you could be on a public Wi-Fi and be subject to being hacked, and you should be on a VPN? Airport. Airport, how many airports have you gone to say, well, I need to do a little work and I need faster connectivity, so I'm going to go on the Wi-Fi? You should never, ever do that unless you're going through a virtual private network. There's only one worse place that I know of than an airport to be on a public network. And this was a classic story. This was my CPA colleagues. Several years ago, right after we got SensCy going, I once spoke to a conference of accountants that do small businesses. And it was at Firekeepers Casino. And so I asked this question while we were in Firekeepers. And I said, how many people in this room are on the public network? Over 90% of the participants in that session raised their hand. Then I asked, how many people are on a VPN? Less than 10%. That was terrifying, and these are the people actually keeping your books and doing your taxes, where your data can be exposed. And why is a casino the worst place? Well, the bad guys are smart. You're going to go where the money is, right? Okay, next slide, please. One more question, then you're off the hook. Do you have an incident response plan? Do you have a written plan on what will happen if you have an attack? And the next slide, can you come with me to my next presentation? You're doing a great job. I'm rolling. Only 31%. That's terrible, folks. It's interesting. We then asked, how often do you update it? Because you should update it annually, because people change, times change. Only 19%. So this is one of my biggest benchmark questions I like to ask people. If you don't have an incident response plan, you're not even doing the basics. And why is that important? Because actually the incident response plan is when you talk about cybersecurity, I'll tell you one fact, is no one is safe. If people came to me and said, can you make me safe? I will tell them I cannot. I can make you safer. There is no one safe in cybersecurity. It is not possible. The National Security Agency is not safe because there's so many different ways you could get hacked. But you can be much, much safer. And so that gets to this point is, if you look at the framework that we use, we follow the National Institute of Standards and Technology cybersecurity framework, the gold standard for good cyber practices in the US. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. And it goes through prevention, detection, but it also does response, recovery, and governance. Because of that fact, you can't say you're safe. Are you going to be ready if you actually got hacked? Can you come back? That's that 48 hours you can be back up if you have an incident response plan that's up to date. So that's one of the best things to have. The other one I always like to ask people is, does your organization, I'll ask this doesn't count towards your 10, so you don't get a finger for this one. Does your organization have a fire evacuation plan if you have a fire in your company? I would say yes. In Michigan, do you have a tornado sheltering plan? Yes. Do you have a cybersecurity incident response plan? Huh? Now, of those 3 events, what's the most likely of the 3 to happen? The cyber one, by far. So now you've had a chance to do 10. Okay, anyone get up to 9 or 10? Oh, we got a 10 there, yeah. We probably have an 8 or 9, yep. We got a good group here. I won't ask the rest of you. We're not going to go through the list to say who's got 1 or 2. Because if you go to the next slide, the rough scoring here is if you're 9 or 10, you're in good shape. 7 or 8, you're improving. If you're 6 or less, you're at high risk. The part I will make you feel better now is you're not alone. You're probably with most organizations in this country. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Next slide. Before I get to actually the scores in the bread, I want to mention a few other things, though, that you should be aware of that I didn't ask you to score on. Vulnerability scanning is something we really recommend. And what is that? We actually do that with our clients, and it's basically like doing a drive-by. If your business is your house and your place, it's like we're driving down your street and we're looking at your house to see, do we see open windows or doors left open or unlocked? We're looking for vulnerabilities that somebody could come through and take advantage of you. We're looking at your website to see what you should be doing. We encourage you to do that. Also, we go out and look on the dark web for your information, the place where your information would be resold. We can't scan all the dark web, but we go to a lot of the major places. Penetration testing is the next level. Vulnerability scanning is the drive-by. Penetration testing is saying you actually bring people in to try to break into things, to see if they can break through. Now that gets a little bit more expensive. That's why I don't put it on the same level. You should at least be doing vulnerability scanning, but penetration testing, if you're a larger organization or you have the resources, we encourage it now. And the prices have come down because we actually use AI tools now to do that. It used to cost $20,000 when you needed people. Now you can do it for $3,000, $4,000 using technology tools. Administrative rights. This is that thing, if you think about the crown jewels of the company, access to all the servers, all that kind of stuff, they're called administrative rights. You want to have it set up so the very fewest number of people possible have access to this stuff. I can see high five there, that's a good one. Quite often, a lot of smaller companies may not even think about that. So it's like the owner will have administrative rights and stuff like that. Really bad idea, unless they happen to be a techie and doing the work. The classic cases, I can tell you, the state of Michigan, we had the badges. You're in Lansing, so you always have seen state employees with their badges around their neck or on their belt or something like that. So they gave me a badge when I became governor. And so my question to them was, and very early on, I said, I'm interested to know, does this badge open everything in the state of Michigan or nothing? Because it's probably one extreme or the other. There's got to be some policy on how they program this thing. So you know what they did? I had great state troopers helping protect me. They took away my badge and I didn't see it for 7.5 years. Backups. Everyone should be doing backups on a frequent basis. The question is, You may think you're doing backups, or you're saying you're doing backups. Have you ever tried to restore your backups? It's that famous question. We think we're safe because we back it all up. And then the thing happens and it's like, how do you get to it? So just think about that. Tabletop exercise. Again, this is one of the more sophisticated ones. But this is basically where you do an exercise where someone in, typically you'll get an outside party. You could do it on your own. We did it on our own at the state because we were big enough. But we'd come in and say, this is a scenario where you've been hacked. How does everyone respond? Like you'd pull out that incident response plan and you'd follow through it to say, does it actually work? So it's an exercise to make sure have you tested everything out. So again, we like to do that. We actually do those for clients that when they want us to help them out as an add-on. We did them at the state of Michigan. So I mentioned David and Dave as our two guys. They were the key of having to respond to the tabletop. So they'd come and say, Governor, we just finished doing the tabletop and it worked out okay. And they always get mad at me because every time they said that, you know what I'd say to them? You didn't make it hard enough then. Because I said, I want you to make it hard enough where it breaks the system. So we find things we didn't know, and we know what to do now. And then I just want to show you about cybersecurity insurance. We encourage every client to have cybersecurity insurance. You should. Again, that's part of that response recovery mechanism. 62% have cybersecurity insurance in some fashion. But cybersecurity insurance is not made for normal humans either in terms of understanding policies. And quite often there's separate requirements and separate limits for ransomware, which is the most likely way you're going to get hit. Only 32% have coverage or a flyer to help cover them on ransomware. So we try to help our clients, and again, good insurance brokers are critically important to work with you on figuring out what your coverages should be. Next slide. What are some future trends? So this is emerging topics. And I don't think there's a presentation on any topic in the United States that doesn't talk about artificial intelligence now. It's overblown in some ways, but it is critically important, particularly in cyber. The bad guys are using it. And so all those phishing email, all those things, particularly the seniors, that used to be broken English or bad language, AI is writing them all now. And they're getting more and more sophisticated. And if they have their name, they can write it as it's directly to you. They can do all these things with artificial intelligence. And it's going to speed up how fast attacks are coming. That gets back to that patching thing. Where you used to be able to wait a little longer, AI is going to be able to find it for them a lot faster. Now the good part is, the good guys use AI too. We actually use AI. We build our own set of tools to be helpful to our clients. And one of the ways we're doing that is to find things that need to be patched faster. So like that inventory of hardware and software, we actually have a tool where we keep track of all that in our system, and then we go against all these different threat feeds and say, do we find a match between that hardware and software and a patch needing to be done? And if we do, we have it then go to a third place to say, what's the remediation steps? What do you need to do to fix it? It combines it all together, writes an email. We actually have a human still review and we send it out. Last year, to give me an idea about how many patches and different things we did, for all our clients, it was over 300. Our average client is probably getting somewhere in the range of 50 patches a year, about one a week, one every 7 to 10 days. There's a critical update you should be working on. That's a lot, folks. So that's where you could use AI to be helpful, and we do, to make it easier to do that. The other thing is, the emerging topic is, I used to primarily only talk about the financial actors, the bad guys trying to get money or your data to sell and stuff like that. With what's going on in the Middle East, that's changed. Now we do need to worry about nation states and their surrogates doing attacks. That was the Stryker attack against Stryker medical supplies. That was the Iranians. They also have attacked another organization. They haven't identified it yet, but another military organization has gotten attacked. If you go even before that, when things became difficult in the Gaza and all those kind of issues, there were groups that went after Israeli equipment in the United States, trying to hack it and shut it down. So nation states are part of this. The problem with nation states in particular is you may not know they're even in your system because they're not just trying to get money. They're not trying to extort you. They may just be trying to get in your system and see how your system operates. The other one is they tend to be even more sophisticated than the financial criminals. And then supply chain is a huge issue. So we help small and medium sized. We recently added a good suite of solutions to help supply chain, larger companies with their supply chain. If you're a bigger company, probably a quarter to a third of the attacks that you need to worry about the most are going to come up through your supply chain. Because they're in your system, or even if they're not in your system, if they get shut down, you may not be able to operate. The classic I like to use people on supply chain, because again, you don't normally think of these. So it's not necessarily your biggest supplier, your most expensive supplier. It can be a second or third tier supplier, and that's what we focus in on, try and help with. And I'll give you an easy illustration. Think of a hospital. Think of Sparrow. What would happen if they took down the elevator supplier at Sparrow? You wouldn't be able to move a patient. So you would never put the elevator supplier as one of your top risks, would you? It is. So supply chain is becoming a huge issue. And then the last one is social engineering versus tech attacks. And I love the phrase social engineering. This is a bunch of nerdy people using a bad term. So what they call like all this phishing and awareness training and all these hacks that involve people, they call it social engineering, where they con you in your credentials and stuff like that. I think it's a terrible term. Social engineering sounds like it's sort of okay, right? It's basically you got conned. It shouldn't be something that sounds as sort of innocuous. That's actually growing versus the technology attacks. And again, this is where they're getting people convinced that it's okay in your personal lives. And again, this is where I really appreciate the seniors. I was talking to some people about this earlier. How many people have either gotten the parking ticket, toll road, license fee, text messages, right? And I joked, I sort of got a kick out of there doing all these toll road text messages in Michigan. If you hadn't been out of state, we don't have toll roads, but we're still getting them. But these are highly sophisticated. And now they're doing things, particularly with seniors, where they're doing voice and other things. They're mimicking someone's voice. And the new one is grandchildren in particular. So the grandparent will get a call, and it'll sound like the grandchild saying, I've been wrongly arrested, I got in an accident, I need money right away, money fast, please wire me this money immediately. And it's not the person at all. It's AI-generated voice. And they can actually do video now. So this is where, if anything's so urgent or important or people are pushing you, you need to hesitate. You need to say, how can I verify that? One illustration I'll share with you that I thought was horrific is we had one of the school shootings in Michigan 2 or 3 years ago. And at one point I talked to the mayor after it was done and after they'd gone through just a horrible experience because of the shooting. And the mayor came up and told me the story that the cyber attacks on their community went up exponentially 100 to 1,000-fold right after the shooting. Because they figured it was a public event, the bad guys could see, they figured the city was in crisis mode, they were trying to deal with every other thing known to man, and they were going to rush and they weren't going to be careful about what they were doing. So now they were especially vulnerable to a cyber attack. These are really bad people. But don't forget, they're really smart people. So, and the last one is the non-disclosure agreement play. This is one of the new ones. So think about this. How many are involved in sales and marketing or some kind of case where you get a non-disclosure agreement with whoever you want to do business with, right? That's pretty standard. So what they're doing now is they'll actually create a company, an organization, and contact you. And they'll say, we're interested in doing business with you. And they'll actually work with you for a week or two. They'll go on and you'll do 2 or 3 conference calls about who they are and how and you'll be trying to sell them and stuff like that. And then they'll go, well, this is getting serious now. We should have a non-disclosure agreement. So we'll send you our non-disclosure agreement, just sign it, and then hopefully we can talk more specifics and wrap up this deal. There is no company. There's nothing they want to buy. They just want to get you to sign that NDA, and they got you. And this is something they'll play along with for a week or two. The other one that happened before this, because I don't want to skip it and not let you be aware of it, is DocuSigns. Same thing with DocuSigns. If you don't expect a DocuSign, or it doesn't make sense, if you get one that has any question at all, independently verify that you have this DocuSign, because what would happen is you'd buy a new house or you do some closing that would show up in the paper, right? That's public information. So the bad guys would do is they would say, congratulations on your new house, that's fabulous. And we're so excited that you're in, it'll show us like from the title company or a bank, and I'll say, but you forgot to sign one set of forms. And I'm sorry to bother you, but could you just sign these forms and then we're done. And it's the bad guys. And one of the worst things you can ever do on any of those kind of deals is they'll put a phone number in there saying, if you have any questions or want to verify this, call this number. And why would they do that? Because they figure you might verify. But if they gave you the same number that's from the bad guys, you know what they have? They have call centers set up with that phone number, so it'll be answered from that organization with someone that will speak English or be an automated voice that will tell you what you need to hear, and you'll say, okay. Never ever use any contact method suggested by the people you question. Independently verify. Yes? Now let me get on how I got all this data. We do this as part of collecting SensCy scores. And what that is a gauge of your cyber health. Again, we use that National Institute standard. We do 39 questions, collects over 100 data points, takes under 45 minutes to do one. It's free. And this is how we get more scores to collect the data to do this report. And to be blunt, why do we do it? Well, it's good marketing for us. People get a crummy score, they quite often become a client. Well, we do the score for free. So if you want to get a score, there's a box you can shoot, or you can just go on SensCy's website and sign up to get a SensCy score. We made it easy to understand. We made it like a credit score. So we took that huge National Institute of Standards thing that's not written in very good English, it's written in techies. We made it into these questions and we made an algorithm, so it's like a credit score. So on a 1,000-point scale, we will give you a number that will tell you basically how good your cyber health is, just like I did those 10 questions. And how do people do? Let me show you the results. Next slide. Only 7% of organizations score 800 or better, which is our standard to say you're in the safer zone. If you're 7 to 800, you're improving, only 11%. 82% of the scores we take are at high risk. The average score is 504. So if you only had 4 or 5 fingers up, you're right with the rest of the country. And to be blunt, you're in trouble. So this just shows how much work we have to do as a nation. We actually have had a couple companies get to 1,000, which is really cool. But if you're in the high 900s, you're in great shape, relative to everyone else especially. Next slide. Now, what's the difference between action and inaction? If you look at this, this actually walks you through it. What's the cost of a cyber health plan where you have people like us or some other party, third party helping you? If you go out and get cyber insurance, and you're about a 200-size person firm, or normal manufacturing firm, or if you're a 20-person professional firm, 40-person professional firm, it's probably going to range $10,000 to $30,000 a year. That's not inexpensive, but what's the cost if you get breached? Again, remember, I had the other number of 200 and some thousand to 1.2, but $300,000 to $1 million plus if you get hacked successfully. And if you don't have at least some of these things in place, again, the 22 days versus 48 hours, but look at all the different things you have, the damages, the damage areas that are non-monetary. I can tell you that a lot of places are going to say, do we want to continue doing business with someone? Particularly if your data got out in that breach, right? So you should really look to do something. And I think we've got one more. So just to summarize this, the risks are only going to get worse. This is going to be more complicated, more sophisticated. There's a chronic condition with no cure. So the analogy I give you to cybersecurity, to put it in human terms, it's like being a diabetic. Think about being a diabetic, and I bet we have a number of diabetics sitting out there. And we don't know who's a diabetic and who's not by looking at the crowd, right? But diabetes is a chronic condition. There is no cure. But the reason we can't tell the difference is if you do diet, exercise, and potentially insulin, and the right measures, you can live just as good a life as anybody else. But it requires you doing diet, exercise, and insulin. Same thing with cybersecurity. I probably scared you in a lot of ways, but you don't need to be scared. You need to be proactive. And you want to build an active cybersecurity culture in your organization, where every employee is getting trained, understands the awareness issues, the executives understand the risk issues and are investing the right way, understand it's not their top priority, but it's a worthwhile priority in the company. And if you do those things right, you can be safer. It's interesting, when I was doing this, I never thought I'd be so excited to work in a company where my main goal is to help people sleep better at night. And again, active culture is the key. So I've given you a lot of information, I've given you a lot of scary information, and scary in the context that it's only getting scarier. But don't ignore it, is the biggest piece of advice. Don't pretend you're okay, especially if you have 3 fingers or 4 fingers up. And the last thing I'll tell you, if you're a small organization, you're going to be, and you're doing business with bigger companies, they're going to start requiring you to do business with them, to have better cyber practices. One great case, and one funny story I'll end with, and then I'll have Chris come up and start the questions, is early on, when we first got going, one of the SensCy scores we got, we did a SensCy score for this company, and their score was 8. We actually went and checked the algorithm. We didn't know if it was possible to score that low. They scored 8. And they weren't coming just to see how they were doing. They wanted to become a client. And the reason is they were a young startup company that was doing data mining. Actually AI-related stuff for big companies, where big companies were giving them their databases, and they were doing the analysis to say, this is a new marketing campaign we want to launch and different things. So they were helping big companies. And someone in their company said, well, we've done great. We've got customers now, we got business. And nobody, all of a sudden somebody goes, no one's asked us about our cybersecurity. And somebody in the company goes, oh my God, if one of these big companies and says, they're going to ask about our cyber practices, and we go, they're going to grab their data, and we're going to lose them as customers. So they had a rush to do well. And the good part I can tell you today, they now score over 900 and something. And they're a rock star. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to come up here from Ann Arbor. Once again, we want to thank our sponsors, Fly Lansing, Capital Region International Airport, Shaheen Chevrolet and Cadillac, Dean Transportation, Snyder, and TriStar Bank. I want to thank my team too, because these things are not easy to put on. Sarah Mosier, Benjamin Robinson, Caitlin Mosier, Jimmy Green, and Jeffrey Mosier. That would cover 80% of the Mosher family. And thank you once again for all of you coming out here. Our next event is going to be the Business Sports Luncheon, and we'll let you know who that speaker is going to be. It'll be either late April or early May. You'll get notification of that. Once again, don't forget about the quick survey that's on there. All this you can get off our website as well. And today's digital program also has a link to the PDF of today's presentation and access to the SensCy score, which Rick shared details about. So with that, thank you all for being here. Have a prosperous month and look for the date of the speaker for next month. Thank you.